Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to our second BCA-SCAL-STAS Construction Restart Leadership webinar, boosting a sustained COVID-safe restart for the construction sector. My name is Colin from BCA. We are very grateful to have Singapore Contractors Association Limited, SCAL, and Specialist Trade Alliance of Singapore, STAS, jointly hosting today's webinar. In this second leadership webinar, we would like to share updates on key developments of positive restart progress and details of the support measures with the builders and specialist contractor firms. Before we start, please note that as participants, you are on mute setting. Should you have any question about the discussion topics, you may do so by clicking on the Q&A button on your screen to type in your queries. When we get to the panel discussion at the end of this webinar, we'll be activating the raise hand function to take on live questions from the audience. Should you wish to ask a question verbally at a time, do click the raise hand icon. Do also note that when the session ends, you will be directed to a short feedback survey after you have exited the webinar. At the end of the survey, you will receive a link where you can download the presentation materials shown today. Here's an overview of today's program. We'll start off with the sharing of two topics, updates of construction restart progress, and topic 2 will cover details of construction support measures, before we end the session with a panel discussion. Let us first invite BCA Chief Executive Officer, Mr. Hugh Lim, to deliver his welcome remarks for the webinar. CEO, please.
Very good morning to our partners from the Singapore Contractors Association and the Specialist Trade Alliance of Singapore. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very pleased to welcome all of you once again here to our second leadership webinar on boosting a sustained and COVID-safe restart. Looking back at our first leadership webinar on what needs to be done collectively as a sector to achieve a quick but COVID-safe restart, our conversation with our ministers was indeed engaging and fruitful with constructive feedback on the restart requirements. Besides our monthly industry engagement webinars, in partnership with our trade associations and chambers, we have also been holding very topic-specific clinics to provide support on project restart applications and the use of the self-help tool to facilitate our industry with greater confidence so that they can restart quickly but safely. Thus far, we have close to 4,000 individuals representing about 2,000 firms who have attended the clinic sessions. And as a result of these collaborative efforts with our industry, we've also approved almost 2,500 construction site projects to restart. This is more than 20 times from just 1 month ago. Nonetheless, for the rest who may still be preparing for restart, we would like to assure you that we fully appreciate the need to resume work quickly. BCA officers are working closely with our industry partners to ensure that you're able to do so safely. It is in our common interest to ensure that our workers are COVID cleared and that safe management measures for accommodation, transport, and the worksite are put in place so that projects can get going again. At the same time, projects that have restarted will need to remain vigilant in implementing the COVID-safe measures so as to prevent a resurgence of the virus. Achieving a COVID-safe sector is the joint responsibility of all stakeholders along the value chain. The use of technology can effectively be deployed for COVID-safe control measures in the area of worksite access control and remote monitoring with data-assisted alerts and compliance checks. So firms can also consider adopting the BuildSG COVID-Safe platform, which is a digital solution that will enable your company to better manage COVID-safe control measures when your projects restart. Companies which opt to adopt this solution may also apply for co-funding support provided jointly by BCA and the IMDA. Now, to safeguard the health and safety of construction workers while resuming work quickly and safely, the government has earlier announced it will continue to bear the cost of the periodic swab tests for construction work permit holders and S-Pass holders until the end of March 2021. Additionally, government will also provide cash flow assistance for contractors to build construction temporary quarters or temporary occupation license quarters through the temporary bridging loan program to secure low interest loans. Likewise, to help firms defray part of the dedicated transportation costs, a foreign worker levy rebate of $90 per worker per month has been extended from August 2020 till December 2021. To further support construction firms to cope with the impact of COVID-19, a $1.36 billion construction support package was recently announced. I'll cover three salient support measures in the areas of 1, construction the restart booster, 2, the co-funding of salaries for safe management officers, and 3, the co-sharing of prolongation costs for public sector projects. First, a construction restart booster of $525 million will be made available to construction projects in 2 separate components. Firstly, the COVID-safe firm-based support, which helps with the additional costs incurred by firms to comply with COVID-safe requirements, such as provision of masks and individually packed meals for workers. Secondly, the COVID-safe project-based support, which provides for additional costs in procuring temperature screening facilities, contact tracing systems, and safe distancing measures. Second, the government is setting aside $48 million to co-fund 50% of the salaries for qualified Singapore or PR safe management officers for 6 months from September 2020 to ensure that safe management measures are implemented at construction work sites. Thirdly, the government procurement entities, or GPEs, will co-share 50% of the prolongation costs for public sector construction projects and tenders, capped at 1.8% of contract sum. My colleague will elaborate on what the construction support package entails, as well as the extension of advance payment for public sector projects, government subsidies for COVID-19 tests, and foreign worker levy rebates. In today's webinar, let's continue to deepen our conversation so that we can take in your feedback and also help to clarify questions on restart requirements and support measures. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our trade association partners like SCAL and STAS for working closely with us on the details of the construction support package, as well as in developing the COVID-safe management measures, specifically for the construction sector to be able to minimize the risks of another outbreak amongst migrant workers living in dormitories. As the sector looks to resume a new normal, we target to streamline processes and information to help our construction sector restart quickly and safely. Moving forward, we will continue our partnership with the TACs and strengthen our industry engagement by conducting more joint webinars and dialogues. In this crisis, I want to reiterate that partnership is more critical than ever before. It is a journey that requires our sustained joint efforts so that we can emerge stronger from this pandemic together. Thank you.
Thank you, CEO. Next, we will share an update on construction restart progress, as well as the construction support package. We'll start with Ms. Tracy Toh, Secretariat, Restart Ops BCA, who will be providing an overview of the key developments in the construction restart progress, latest updates on COVID-safe restart criteria, and access code enhancements. Thereafter, Ms. Jo Yap, Senior Manager, Strategic Partnership Department, will be sharing on the details of the support measures to help the industry in maintain business sustainability, restart their businesses, and manage cash flow. Ms. Tracy and Jo, please.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Tracy from BCA, and today I'll be giving you an update on the construction sector restart. So this is the outline for today's presentation. So it's been more than a month since the restart of our construction sector, and to date we have approved close to 2,500 construction projects and more than 50,000 renovation works applications. However, there are still many private projects that have yet to come in for restart, and we would like to urge contractors to start applying for restart while waiting for your workers to be cleared. Since the restart, we have also been engaging the industry and have organized 12 webinars and online clinics to date, reaching out to more than 16,000 attendees with another 5 sessions coming up in the second half of July. In the coming months, we will also continue to engage the industry through a series of webinars such as the Recover webinar and Resilience webinar series. Moving on, I'll be covering some of our new initiatives. So firstly would be our BCA's Telegram channel with more than 6,000 subscribers to date. We urge everyone to subscribe to it to receive our latest updates on the go. For instance, we have shared updates on our dorm clearance and also how to go about restarting projects. Next, we're also pleased to share that we have launched the One-Stop Navigator for the construction restart and training. These provide a comprehensive overview of all the necessary information for a restart, such as the respective flowcharts for application submission, links to FAQs, training requirements, and even course registration forms. These are also made available in Mandarin and can also be found on both our website and our Telegram channel. Next, our latest initiative would be the Construction Restart Resource Kit, which is a comprehensive kit which helps guide the industry on how to restart. It comes with dedicated guides for the various stakeholders, such as our developers, main cons, subcons, and even our renovation contractors. For each of our stakeholders, there would be step-by-step guide on the restart preparation and application, as well as details of good practices of our safe management measures to guide firms towards a COVID-safe restart. This resource kit will be first shared through our Telegram channel, so do subscribe to our Telegram to receive it firsthand once it's launched. Next, I will be sharing more about keeping our worksites COVID safe. As you're all aware, worksites are potential hubs for virus transmission, which could then lead to formation of clusters. One such example would be the major outbreak at Project Glory, which was one of the largest construction site clusters. In another more recent outbreak at the project site, 6 COVID cases were confirmed among a team working in the middle work zone of the project site. Based on investigations, it was revealed that this was due to workers from different work zones mixing around and also sharing common facilities such as their lunch and rest areas, transportation, and even workers' residences. The outbreak had actually resulted in quarantine order being issued to 356 close contacts, and stop work order was also served. Through this case, key lessons learned was really to minimize intermixing among workers by cohorting them, and also to stagger the use of common lunch and rest areas. Additionally, the different cohorts should not be mixing during transportation and in places of residence to prevent cross-infection. This slide summarizes the key COVID-safe management measures to be observed on site, and there are 3 key objectives. Firstly, to ensure safe access where only healthy and approved workers are allowed to work on site. As such, it is key to have in place entry control so that roving subcons or even visitors do not mix with workers working on site. 2. To ensure safe distancing, builders will need to appoint Safe Management Officers, SMO, and Safe Distancing Officers, SDO, to enforce the necessary safe distancing measures and to ensure segregation and cohorting of workers. Thirdly, for containment, specifically, there will be a need to have COVID fast response plan to ensure that the infected and quarantined workers are isolated quickly. BCA has also set up an audit and inspection team to ensure the effective implementation of safe management measures. Based on our observations thus far, the top few breaches are as follows. Firstly, we noted that there are instances where workers have started working although they have yet to receive BCA's approval, or Safe Entry NRIC version has yet to be installed on site. There are also cases where there are missing safe management measures planned on site or missing SMO, as well as mills that are currently not individually tagged. So here are some illustrations of the breaches that I just mentioned, and BCA will be taking enforcement actions against worksites that do not conform to the necessary requirements. On the other hand, this slide features examples of good practices, such as having segregated entrances and exits and clear zoning plans to help minimize intermixing among workers. There's also temperature monitoring to ensure that our workers are well, and also individually prepacked meals. To also allow ground-up feedback, BCA will be distributing posters with QR codes to be displayed on site for workers to report any non-compliances. BCA will also be briefing project managers and their SMOs on these, as well as by sending mass SMS to inform workers of such a channel for the reporting of unsafe practices. Lastly, BCA will also continue to engage the industry to ensure a COVID-safe restart through sharing sessions, as well as continuous efforts to increase awareness on effective site management, for example, through improving the clarity of our requirements through briefings and FAQs, and to also provide guidance to builders, SMOs prior to audits, and to share our inspection checklists with our SMOs. We will also continue to conduct regular briefing and dialogues so that we can share more about the good practices with the industry. Next, I will be highlighting 3 key improved features with the Assess code. Firstly, the Assess code color has already been simplified to just green and red, as the gray code has already been removed. This will make it much more intuitive, with the green indicating that workers can now leave for work, while red would then mean otherwise. Second, employers would now be able to check their workers' access code details and the corresponding conditions that they or their workers have yet to meet. Thirdly, workers themselves will also be able to find out why the access code status is red. For example, if their place of stay has yet to be cleared or if they have failed to install the necessary applications. Next, I'll give a quick update on DOM clearance. As of 7th of July, 384 more DOMs have already been cleared, bringing the total number to 625 DOMs and 44 blocks of recovered workers in 17 TBDs. Also, there are about 180 workers that have either been cleared or recovered, of which some are pending movement to their appropriate accommodation before they resume work, while the rest can only do so after the DOM operators, employers, and workers have completed the necessary preparation. Moving forward, more and more DOMs will be cleared progressively and more projects will be able to restart. Hence, firms are encouraged to start preparing and to apply for restart in the meantime. Next, I'll highlight the latest updates to our safe transport requirements after incorporating industry's feedback. As shown in yellow, site-based work permit holders who are residing in non-DOMs will now be allowed to take private hire vehicles and taxis. Similarly, for S-Pass and Work Pass holders in DOMs and GSF, they may also do so. Lastly, in order to safeguard project progress and our community's interest in preventing the resurgence of infection, it is key for our industry to take on the ownership in implementing and enforcing COVID-safe measures. As such, BCA has developed a system, the Build SG COVID-Safe platform, meant for COVID-safe employers to adopt and be assisted by technology to achieve a COVID-safe restart. In particular, we have a COVID-safe workforce, worksite, and workers' accommodations. Builders will also be able to use tech, complement their SMO and SDO for audit and inspection purposes. This slide shows some uses of technologies, which include worksite access control. This can be achieved through the use of technologies such as facial biometric recognition, thermal scanners, and systems to verify and record workers' details. Second, we can also use technology for remote monitoring to help ensure that SDM and worker segregations are in place. Some technology that can be used will include the AI camera, contact tracing wearables, and inspection apps. To end off, we urge firms to consider the adoption of this solution, and firms that are interested could also tap on full funding support provided jointly by BCA and IMTA, and more details on these will be provided subsequently. Thank you.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Jo, and I'll be sharing with you on the construction sector support measure for the next 15 minutes. Okay, to help the built environment firms preserve capacity, capability, and protect jobs in the COVID situations, various support measures have been introduced, such as wage subsidies, rebate and levy waivers, cash flow assistance, and reduction of compliance costs arising from new restart criteria. I will share more details of the various support measures in the next few slides. Manpower cost is a key expense for firms. To help offset manpower costs and protect the livelihood of our residents, the Job Support Scheme was introduced. with government co-funding 75% of the gross monthly wages, capped at $4,006 for eligible Singapore citizen and permanent resident employees from June to August 2020. This is applicable regardless of whether firms have started work or not. All construction and consultancy firms that fall under the category of the SSIC codes shown in the slide are qualified for the Enhanced Job Support Scheme. No application is required. To support firms with inactive construction workers, the Foreign Worker Levy waivers and rebate is extended to help firms with manpower costs. This slide, the slide shows the levy rebate and companies can obtain under this support measure. Please note that from August 2020, firms will receive a $90 foreign worker levy rebates monthly for work permit holder only until December 2021. Firms with construction foreign workers are automatically eligible for these waivers and rebates. No application is required. To help ease firms' cash flow and ensure business sustainability, the public sector will take the lead to provide support for co-sharing the prolongation costs of contractors. This includes operating expenses incurred, such as equipment maintenance when projects are stopped. Government agencies will co-share 50% of the prolongation costs, capped at 1.8% of contract sum. Ongoing main contracts and tenders closed on or before 1st June 2020 are eligible for the support measure. Contractors are required to submit the breakdown and documentary proof of these additional costs incurred, including costs incurred by their subcontractors and suppliers. As some construction projects have not fully resumed work yet, the government will extend advance payment to firms working on public sector projects. Main contractors of public sector projects were earlier granted advance payment for the months of April and May 2020. GPEs will now extend advance payment up to the point when the projects have obtained approval to restart or 31st December 2020, whichever is earlier. The advance payments is subject to a monthly cap of 2.5% of the contract sum, or 5 million, whichever is lower, and an overall cap of 5% or 10 million for all advance payment receipts, whichever is lower. To claim for the advance payment, the main contractors is required to provide a list of its first level subcontractors or suppliers involved in the works originally scheduled during the extended circuit breaker period. The temporary bridging loan program provides access to working capital for business needs. It can be used to ease cash flow for building CTQs or QLQs as part of the safe accommodation requirements. Eligible enterprise may borrow up to 5 million with the interest rate capped at 5% per annum. The government will provide 90% risk share on these loans. There are about 2,000 approved loans for construction firms with a total of about 1.6 billion. As part of the support measure to defray compliance cost sharing from new restart criteria, the government will fund swab testing costs for the construction sector until 31st March 2021. All personnel arranged for swab tests by BCA under the construction sector will not be required to pay for the swab test, and all swab tests are strictly by appointment only. An online swab test appointment service by HPB is currently being piloted. More details will be released soon. The SMO wage support scheme is applicable for main contractors who are required to deploy Singapore citizen or Singapore PR SMOs to ensure the safe management measures are implemented at construction work site. The government will co-fund 50% of the first 4,006 of gross monthly wages for Singapore citizen or Singapore PR SMO from September 2020 to February 2021. As per COVID-safe worksite requirements, each construction project is to be supported by one SMO. Application details will be released at a later date. The COVID-safe firm-based support is part of the construction restart booster package. It helps firms with the COVID-safe costs incurred, such as provisions of PPEs, masks for the workers, and individually packed meals. The government will help offset COVID-safe costs by providing $400 per construction workers employed per firm. All firms employing construction workers will receive this one-off support. The support will be credited directly to the eligible firms through GIRO. To receive the support by 31st August 2020, firms should have a valid bank account registered with vendors at Gov, latest by 20 August 2020. No other application is required. The COVID-safe project-based support is also part of the Construction Restart Booster package. It provides support for COVID-safe costs, rebate related to ensuring project sites comply with the requirements such as provision of temporary screening facilities, contact tracing system, and safe distancing measures. Support amount will be based on project contract value as shown in the slide. Main contractor with ongoing construction projects as of 27 June 2020 are eligible for this one-off support. These include both restarted projects and projects pending restart. Similarly, the support will be credited directly to eligible firms through GIRO. To receive the support by 31st August, firms should apply for the support via Form SG by 7 August and have a valid bank account registered with vendors at Gov by 20 August. Yep, I have come to the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Tracy and Joe. We will now move on to the panel discussion. Today, we are pleased to have on the panel Mr. Hugh Lim, Chief Executive Officer, BCA, Architect Tai Lee Siang, Executive Director, Build-SG, BCA, who will moderate the panel. From the industry, we'd like to welcome Mr. Kenneth Lu, Immediate Past President, Singapore Contractors Association Limited, Mr. Nelson T, Honorary President, Specialist Trade Alliance of Singapore. Together with them, we have from BCA, Engineer Chew Kit Chuan, Group Director, Building Engineering and Commissioner of Building Control, Engineer Grace Mui, Center Director, iBuild-SG, and Group Director of Manpower Strategy and Planning, Mr. Tan Chi Kiat, Group Director, Business Development, and Mr. Reginald Wee, Center Director, WeBuild-SG, BCA. You may participate in the conversation by posting your questions via the Q&A button on your screen or by clicking the raise hand button to ask the verbal question once we have activated the function. Do note that all unanswered queries will be addressed, compiled, and published via FAQ on the webinar link at a later date. Over to you, Edie Tai, please.
Thank you. Very good morning to each and every one of you. This is, again, a continuation of our update on the progress of Restart. Before I kick off, let me just frame the background with this quotation. The coronavirus will remain a problem for a long time yet, and Singaporeans will have to learn to live with it for the long term. This means getting used to new arrangements in the way people work, play, and lead their everyday lives, from our Prime Minister Lee Hsien Loong on June 7. I want to paint this backdrop because I would like us to know that we are still very much in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic, not just locally, but globally. So there are a lot of considerations in the restart that has to take this into consideration. Now, before we start off with all the Q&As, I have 723 participants with about close to 100 questions coming up. And I would like to kick off with a few questions for our guests first. So first to CEO Hugh Lim. Since the lifting of circuit breaker from 2nd June 2020, almost 6 weeks have passed. Looking back, we have witnessed a cautious restart. Yes, I think we would like to go as fast as possible. And many projects are learning the new normal for the first time because we've never done this before. Now, we also seen on 27 June, Second Minister Desmond Lee announced further support package for the building and construction sector. Very welcome. Some has actually still expressed that more can be done. Now we are in mid-July. Looking forward, the Joint Task Force has announced that the majority of dormitories will be cleared, hopefully by end of this month, and remain there by mid-August 2020. Now, I'd like you to give your view about the progress so far. Is this within expectation? If not, what are some of the things that we feel we could have done better? But perhaps with, again, a very short runway to a full restart, even for the last players in mid-August, what are the things we can really quickly improve on so that we don't repeat certain mistakes, but really get ourselves to a strong, solid foundation? CEO, Yulin.
Okay, thank you very much, Lee Siang. Let me begin firstly by expressing my appreciation to our partners from industry. And I refer not only to the trade associations who have been working closely with us to provide feedback from industry, but also developing good solutions so that the safety measures that are applied on site are both effective but practical. And I think this is one of the tensions that we have to manage as more and more projects get restarted and more of our workers come back out onto the work site. So I think the first point is this close collaboration actually allows us to get started quickly and safely. I think a number of you had asked some questions about, how are we doing? And I think Lee Siang summarized that by posing me the same question. We have about slightly under 5,000 ongoing projects when the circuit breaker kicked in. So today, about half of those have been given approval for restart. And I would say roughly about 1/3 actually have activity on site. Others are approved, but they are still making preparations on how to start safely. So I think we fully appreciate the efforts by our partners in industry to take in how to implement safe management measures on site. Obviously, for the smaller sites and projects, those measures are not as difficult. But for some of the large project sites where the full workforce can amount to many hundreds of workers, this is indeed a lot of preparation that needs to be done. So we fully appreciate the efforts by our industry partners to digest how to implement measures safely. And we look forward to your feedback as to how we can continue to refine some of those measures. Some of it, as many of you in the industry appreciate, come about because of the way in which we do construction. Not necessarily just one company, but typically many companies, many subcontractors moving around on site, and many workers. So with each worker and with each company involved, there's a certain amount of risk that we have to manage. So understandably, the measures that are needed are actually quite demanding. And for this reason, government has recognized the need to provide some co-funding, some support, so that our companies, as you get restarted, you also have some funding support for those measures that have to be put in place. As Lee Siang mentioned, COVID may be with us for quite some time. So we have to make sure the measures are not good just for getting started, but we can sustain them over the next few months, maybe another 1 to 2 years. So it's not a trivial thing to do. So again, I think we appreciate your leaning forward, meeting us halfway so that BCA and the trade associations who work out practical measures, we can meet you halfway as to how to implement those on site. Now, our audit and inspection teams have been visiting sites because we also want to have a first-hand look at how well these measures are implemented. And I must say there is some concern that some of the measures, which are actually quite practical ones, are not actually being implemented. One of those practices that we come across is sharing of meals. So again, if you have more workers on site and the workers start sharing meals, you can imagine the chance that COVID will be passed from one worker to the other goes up quite tremendously. In the dorms, this is the other source of risk because some of the dorms indeed have a very large population, and it's taking some time to clear because unfortunately the dorms cannot be so easily isolated when the workers are inside as well. So some of your workers have fed back to you that they've been tested once, twice, sometimes 3 or 4 times. Why so many times to be tested? And unfortunately, it is because in some cases, after testing, not necessarily your workers, but other workers within the same block, within the same floor, get tested positive. So there is a concern that there's still infection going around inside some of the dorms. So we appreciate your patience as the interagency task force goes about this very complex task of clearing not just individual workers, but clearing the whole dorm so that the workers who are living there can be cleared to come out and to work safely on site. And these safety measures are not only for the well-being of the workforce, they are also for the well-being of employers and the many Singaporeans who also work on the same sites, and ultimately for the safety also of the wider community. So we appreciate the patience, and we know that some of you are anxious because without work being able to restart, without your workers being able to come out, there's no cash flow. So I think we fully appreciate this, but we also do seek your understanding that the interagency task force has been stepping up efforts in testing, but also clearing the dorms so that more workers can come out to work. The last point I would make is that please do monitor the dorm clearing schedule. Actually, the MOM publishes the schedule so that, again, based on your feedback, employers are able to see when the dorms that your workers are in are likely to be cleared. It's not a guaranteed date because sometimes when they test to clear them, they find actually there's still some live cases inside. But it's a good indication when the dorm itself will be cleared. So ahead of that, we do request that the main contractors who take the lead on each worksite put in your application for restart. We have given self-check, so you also understand what preparations need to be done. And we hope to see the applications come in so that they can be approved ahead of when the dorm is cleared. And therefore, when the dorm is actually cleared, the workers can get restarted almost immediately. There are some individual preparations that need to be done by the dorm operator, by the employer, and by the worker themselves. So again, those are something as an employer, we hope that the employers will help us to implement those ahead of the full dorm clearance, because that will help to speed up the time when the worker is cleared and when the worker can actually come out to restart work again. All right, but all in, I think we're quite happy to see that despite the many new requirements that industry has had to take on board, our industry partners have responded positively, and many more are actually being positioned to restart within this month. And that's what I think many of you had fed back in an earlier session, that the best support that we can give is to enable firms to get restarted. And that's what we would like to see. Thank you.
Thanks, Hugh. In fact, on that note, even as you started talking about industry partnership as well as ending with that, I now turn to Kenneth and Nelson. Would like to also just have your views about the collaboration aspect. But before that, let me first invite you as an industry player, one representing yourself as main con as well as even developer, and Nelson in the subcontracting and specialist business. from your perspective, what are the lessons learned and the advice that you would give for your fellow industry players? Then we come back and talk about the association. Kenneth first, then Nelson.
Okay, I think we are actually in a new era where this new challenge everybody is facing is something that is new to everybody. I think it is actually a new learning experience. Of course, I think as a industry, we need to work together, both as all the players along the value chain, including the authorities, to work together to iron out all the issues that we are facing in order to have a safe restart. I think a lot of policies that are implemented, perhaps we don't really have time to really actually look through it to make sure that we covered every angle. A lot of them could be a broad stroke approach, but good to see is that we have constant communication with all the relevant stakeholders in the industry to actually make sure that we can recalibrate whatever decisions we make to make it suit our environment. I think this is very important, especially, I mean, all of us want to restart as soon as possible. We made actually as an industry, we made a calculation. Each month that we stop, we probably need more than half a year to recover the losses that we suffer. I think, but then of course, having said that, we want to restart, we cannot actually afford another outbreak. That's why I think we need to work together to understand the issues and perhaps address the issues when we know what is happening, so that everybody benefits from it. Thanks.
Thanks. Nelson? Sorry, you are muted. Can you on your mic?
Sorry. Thanks,
Yeah.
Lisa.
Thanks.
Okay. First of all, I think we appreciate that BCA has with higher frequency of engagement with the STAS. So a lot of things matters arising has been cleared over the last few weeks. Okay, and I also see more clarity on the SMM, safe management measures, and also BCA has update their website very frequently, and the message has been sent across the board. Okay. At the same time, I think I would like to thank BCA for incremental support to the contractors, like from the prolongation cost, SMO salary, and CombiSafe, FirmSafe support. Moving forward, we actually encourage our specialist contractors to engage main contractors in the early stage before work starts on a daily basis, especially on the work schedules and tasks to be carried out in the next few days, so that we can manage safe distancing measures very, very closely. Okay. We also encourage our specialist contractors to have their own dedicated SMO to manage their workforce. I think this will help on both sides, so that the main con do not need to stretch out themselves. Thank you.
Thanks. Again, just a quick word on the way forward. How do you see the collaboration between agencies and TACs turning out this time and moving forward? I mean, this is unusual time. I don't think I've met Kenneth on almost weekly basis, even Nelson. In ITM, we meet each other once a month, maybe the most.
I think it's a very good collaboration between the TACs, especially we meet more frequently, either virtual or physically. But moving forward, I think more importantly that the COVID-19 issue is not BCA's problem alone. I think it's for all the stakeholders. All of us, I think, if there's problems unsolved or there's no answer to the problems or the issues, I think we should come up with, many of us, I think, have many ideas. We should come up with constructive, implementable, and sustainable ideas, so that everybody can move forward and take advantage of that.
Thanks. Kenneth?
I think we are in an industry that is very diverse in the sense of capability. we have a group of people that perhaps will be actually up to speed with what is going on, and another group that perhaps may be the other end of the spectrum. With this sort of diversity, communication is paramount. And of course, the issues that are faced between people is actually very diverse. I think the feedback channel, education is paramount. We need to work together going forward. I think which we are doing all this while. I mean, like what Li Xiang mentioned, I think we meet almost at least once a week, sometimes twice a day for that matter. I think this should continue, at least for the short term, for us to get out of the woods, and of course to have a healthy, to get industry back to its feet.
Okay, I'm going to kick off with some of the questions and answers that we should give to the audience. This question, I think, is going to put all our confidence to test. This is from Sylvia Lee. She spoke about recent development of COVID-19 for foreign workers, particularly still at the 3-digit daily cases. How will the construction sector be affected by this? If this does not reduce, what will happen? I know it is a speculation, but we are staring at the figures too on a daily basis. Now we are talking about safe restart. We talk about good progress, good comms, but reality is we may still continue to see this number down to July, down to August even. What will be our response to this? Maybe I can invite the CEO Hugh Lim to kick off, and Kenneth and Nelson, your views.
Okay, it's true it is a concern. Partly, I think we have to see in context. There's a lot of testing going on. So as the testing takes place, they do uncover cases. Fortunately, not all the cases are live cases, as in the tests also do pick up old cases. So for the purpose of transparency, when they are detected positive, they are reported. But what the MOH also does is that they also check whether they have what they call serology positive result, meaning they actually have antibodies, and that would tell us that the worker may actually be a recovered worker. So it's not a bad thing, but those take more time for the results to come out. So when MOH reports the figures, they report them based on what we are more familiar with, the swab test. So the swab test is what you see either inserted through the nose or the throat. So that just tests for the presence of COVID-19. But after that, what they have been also doing, particularly for those who live in the dorms, is then they check, do they also have antibodies? And that takes a few more days, and it requires a blood test. So many of these cases, actually, they find that they are also seropositive, meaning that they have antibodies and they're on either fully recovered or on the way to recovery. Okay, but you can develop antibodies but not yet be fully recovered, and that's why they give them a few more days. I think it's about 1 more week after that, to make sure that they're really not infectious before they are released out. All right, so the numbers are there because testing is still going on aggressively inside the dorms, because they want to make sure that every worker who may potentially be exposed to COVID-19 is cleared before they're released out. I think some of you have asked, you know, they've been tested once, why is that not enough? Okay, unfortunately, because they live in close quarters in the dorms, after they're tested once, they need to be isolated first. Then they test 1 more time. Because the day you test, you know, if you were exposed to it, let's say the day before, you may have caught it, but not yet sufficiently positive that the first test will pick it up. So they test them 1 time, then they isolate the worker for 14 days, and they test 1 more time to make sure that in between they did not develop COVID-19. All right, so at minimum it's 2 tests, but in between, if there are more C+ cases, then they may have to undergo further tests after that. All right, so all in, I do find that the numbers actually have been coming down quite well, and I think we should be reasonably confident that by the end of July, the majority of the purpose-built dorms, these are the ones with much bigger population, will be cleared, and the workers who are able to come out for work are also cleared. Then the challenge shifts to us in the industry, okay, the construction industry, to make sure they keep safe and to keep clear after they've been cleared. Because as Kenneth mentioned, we don't want to have a situation where, after a few weeks of being able to come out for work, we have to close the dorm again because of fresh outbreak. It's not a small threat. Some of the dorms that have been, cleared for some time, they do find new cases coming out. So it hasn't completely disappeared from the community, but I think with the measures that we have advised all sites to take, we hope to keep any fresh cases contained among a much smaller group. And that requires the cooperation as well as the commitment from all the parties involved, not just the main con, but all the different subcons do need to play their part, how to keep their workers segregated, keep them from mixing with other workers, and to minimize any chance that they pick it up from elsewhere. Okay, thank you.
Yep. So Kenneth and Nelson, some response to this. What would you do? I mean, from a SCAL and STAS perspective.
I think the virus is still evolving. I mean, the knowledge of it is perhaps something that is we are probably getting more. I mean, my own personal experience, the method of decanting or checking the dorms is also changing. I mean, initially they decant the workers that are positive, but now decant the workers that are negative in one of my dorms. I think this is something that we are learning. But from the angle of contractor managing our site, I think the most important thing, like what CEO mentioned, is that we need to be able to segregate. Let's put it this way: the risk is always, it's a question of risk. At the end of the day, there's still a risk of happening. But when it happens, we need to be able to react to it to make sure that we segregate the problem so that it is confined and contained, rather than what we have been experiencing currently. I think the harsh reality is that it would, no matter what we do, it may happen, but then we need to control it. That's my view.
Nelson, you need to unmute.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I think before the effective vaccine is available, I think we still have to live with this. Okay, but most of the concerns from our members are this: you see, because some PBD, they have released their workers, and I mean they have allowed workers to be decanted from the site, from the dorm, and go to work. But subsequently, there is a refresh. Okay, it's a new fresh outbreak. So this causes anxiety of the employers. How can we overcome this issue? So one of the things we are thinking is that, is it possible to isolate by floors instead of by entire dome? Okay, for example, 5th floor, there's a new outbreak. Okay, what happened for the 2nd and 3rd floor? Can the workers be released? I think these are the concerns of our members. See, of course, maybe we have to find new measures, to make this happen. But is it possible to think about this, okay, instead of closing down the entire dorm?
Okay, thanks, Nelson. Now I'm going to move on to more specific questions. Before we do that, also just to remind the audience that there is a function for you to raise your hands. We will do that for the last 15 minutes or so, so that we can also hear from you directly. Now, as usual, I think there are many questions, and some of the questions are very project specific, and our staff has also been responding at the back end to the tune of, I think about 2/3 of them are being answered right now. So, but I pick out some of these things may need to help the panelists to give you a overall picture and to highlight the principles in which some of these actions are based on. So as usual, I like to kick off with things that are very much related to human being. That's a safe workforce. And that we have Grace Mui to help us answer some of these questions. We don't have a Ministry of Manpower representative here, but she has been working so closely with them that she's almost there all the time with them. So she will be able to give us some insights about how some of these things are carried out. Now, of the workforce-related issues and topic, typically the DOM clearance questions, and then also on the SS code and as well as the swab test. So let me start with DOM clearance. There are some concerns over the different speed of clearance of the different types of dormitories, in particular FCD versus PBD. And there are also questions asked whether the means to clear the DOMs are there adequately to ensure that the targets are met by July, and so that they have their workers with green status. These questions came from Charles Lee, Jamie Lim. So let's just focus on that. Maybe Grace could just give a insight in terms of the approach and also give the assurance in terms of the speed of clearance.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Chairman, for this. Okay. In terms of the DOM clearance, right? Actually, I think there is also over time. Actually, we also get more clarity on this. When actually MOM put out the schedule that is on the website, and it is updated quite regularly on the speed of it, and even they also break down into various milestones on the DOM clearance, so that it gives more clarity. Because actually sometimes the DOMs could be just COVID clear, meaning the workers have been swab tested, but there is also other milestones that needs to be achieved, for example, by the DOM operator, by the employers, by the workers themselves as well, even as an act of like simply downloading the trace together. Actually, this is also one important milestone that all of us are part of it in achieving the final clearance of the DOM, so that leads to rate access code. That's the ultimate thing that can get back our workers to work. So we have also been monitoring this process of the clearance, and actually based on what we can see, in the last few weeks, actually it has speed up quite a fair bit, and in preparation for that, right, actually we have also been reaching out to the industry. This is one important message that we would want to share, that you can, if let's say you have yet to apply for work status approval, this is the time that actually you prepare and quickly submit the approval, so that when the workers when the workers are ready and clear from the dormitory, then they would be readily be able to come out, and you can see the full access code green for the status. So this is the message that I would want to share with the participants here. In terms of specific, of course, PBD is a larger community that is within the PBD. It may take a little longer for safety of our workforce as well. While actually we are also trying to expedite over time. For example, the TLQs that is less than 6, actually MOM has also tried to expedite it, and without the need of clearance, in terms of just regular, similar to the community HDB PLP, that they just need to go for the regular testing. And actually BCA is also stepping in to assist in arranging for regular testing for the workers. Okay, while actually we expedite this, just now also the CEO and also STAS and SCAL president, they also share, they also share about the need to continue to remain safe, and also implement all those various measures, SDM, SLM, and there's actually multiple layers of safety net that we have, but we have to ensure that all these nets are actually intact, and so that our overall number will remain will remain manageable in terms of the COVID safety.
So, Grace, what we are hearing is that the progress of the dorm clearance is very much on track.
Yes.
And there is equal efforts for all the different typologies of dormitories being attended to, including FCD, PBD, and all the rest. So members of the audience can take comfort that there's no lack of effort to actually try to clear everybody and not just focusing on one type over the other type. And most importantly, the message out there is that you need to actually get started on applications for restart and not wait for all the clearance to complete. By this concurrent activity, not linear, not sequential, then we can do things faster. Okay, now moving on to access code, this has gone through quite a bit of change on the 12th of July with the removal of the gray color. There are, of course, continued questions, quite project specific, like from Lee Woon-tik, how can foreign worker permit be green today but suddenly change to red the next day? Maybe I'll invite you to give, first of all, a bit of overview of that change on the 12th of July and what will cause such a situation to happen.
Okay, so in terms of the green, the access code, right, when we first roll out in early June, it's actually only 3 colors, including gray as well. And actually, there is also, I mean, we are, there's no yet to have a lot of details about why is it red, and then all of us actually are also trying to diagnose the reasons. And actually, also thanks to the association's members sharing about some of these pain points that this industry face. So actually, we work with MOM together to enhance the access code system. And since 12 July, actually they roll out an enhanced version, which actually is simplified further by having just a green and red access code. And actually, you can also go into the employer's portal to download all your workers' access code details, and you can see where is, if they are red, why is it red, and then we can go straight into which are the specific areas that we could work on. For example, is it place of stay? Is it the health status of the workers, which actually you will just have to wait out for the workers to recover? Then is it work status? Then you can actually go into quickly prepare for the approval for work. So I think this is this has helped all of us a lot in terms of knowing the status of the work. And talking about whether it is possible that, I mean, like sometimes whether there's change of colors and things like that, I could see there is 2 operation issues here that maybe I can also take this opportunity to highlight. Because actually sometimes when there are projects that actually, when contractors make submission, there could also, they will have to key in certain fee numbers of the workers. And sometimes this information could be not incorrect. So if that's the case, then actually it may also render not able to be approved the workers. So I think small things like that, actually it helps us to even expedite. And for example, if let's say you want to add on to our project on the number of workers add on to the project, then make sure the full details of the other previously approved workers are also in, so that they will not be dropped out along the way. And the other thing is also going forward, actually, as we stabilize this, as these access codes also stabilize, it does give us a lot of intel about the workers. For example, if let's say he's issued a quarantine order, actually it will be reflected in the access code. And that could be also reason why it is red going forward. Yeah, so I think these are, yeah, but you can actually find out the information by clicking onto the details in the WorkPass apps or in the employer's portal. Okay, so this is one good way of communication to the down to the workers and also to the firm as well, as fast as possible. Because actually, I also noticed that actually when we talk about pandemic, right, the response time actually is a very important aspect of it. Yeah.
Okay, just want to bring to your attention that the idea of removing the grey code actually came from SCAL-STAS in one of the dialogue. Thanks for the contribution. Now, just quickly moving on, a question about swab test. again, from Lee Woon-Taek, the same person, he felt that arrangement bi-weekly could still be improved. But I know it's a general question, but I think maybe useful for you, Grace, to give an overview of the role that BCA plays in arrangement or swab tests. I mean, just to let the audience know, this is not a small effort, and it's we're talking about big numbers here. So, Grace.
Cannot answer the question. I push back to answer.
Yes, okay. So in terms of
my worker cannot start.
We have started, for companies to resume work safely, for all of us to resume work safely, having swab tests is important. And actually, this also stepped in to help out in working together with HPB to conduct this regular swab tests. We started off with arranging for workers that is in the community. That means they stay in the PRP, the private residential properties and the HDB areas, so that they can concurrent, they can work while actually we make the arrangement for the tests to be done on a regular basis. And then actually as more dorms are being cleared, actually BCA also support in actually getting the workers in the dormitory that is cleared to be regularly tested as well. And just also want to give an update that the number of test center has also, regional test center has also increased. Started from 1 or 2, actually is already like about 8 out there right now. So we are working quite hard on this, and also we gotten some support from SCAL as well in helping us to going forward to do some of this arrangement. And also not just that, this is the interim arrangement, but we are already piloting and working with some of the companies out there to actually implement this the swab test registration system, so that the companies yourself actually could also do the registration going forward, and suiting your project schedule or your work schedule. And on top of that, actually we are taking in this is a HPB system, or the self-registration SRS system, and we are also taking in some feedback from the pilot companies about how to make it automated, so that actually, and it's also so that it is easy for you in terms of arranging this swab test. And in the meantime, actually the cost is actually covered by the government, the test itself. Yeah, so these are some key features that we are still working on. Actually, we anticipate to maybe roll it out to the full industry around August period. Just tentative information for your planning. Yeah.
Thanks, Grace. So here I plead the audience patience, as CEO Hugh Lim has asked. It is very exceptional things that we're doing for the first time. So recalibration is needed and adjustment needed, but we're doing this as fast as we can. Next, let me turn to Chee Kiat. There are a number of questions related to, let's start with transportation. Of course, we have published a table on the guidelines for transportation, but in particular, questions come a lot from the subcon and the specialists. So in this case, for example, we have, I hope I pronounced the name correctly, Joe Opis, who says that he has 8 workers stay together in one room, one dorm. Can he collect them into one dedicated transport to send them to various sites? Normally, he will assign 2% to one site, and they are specialists. So this is an example of a subcon who has got to go to multiple sites, or their workers stay in one dorm, one place. Another case, questions about workers staying in a hotel. Are they allowed to take public transport? One other question about FM staff utilizing construction account workers. Can they take public transport instead of company arranged vehicle? I think instead of trying to answer the question in very project specific manner, can I invite Chee Kiat maybe just to give some clarity on the principle governing, especially focusing on specialists like them, not the main con type of workers, what are some of these governing principles and therefore the guidelines?
Thanks, Li Xiang. Okay, so firstly, I think in terms of safe transportation, along the way, we have make some review it and then make some relaxation, I would say. In terms of those workers who are work permit holders who are not working on site and they are not staying in the dorm, we have actually relaxed the requirements to allow them to take public transport. So so in terms of those that are still working on site, I think the risk of infection is still there. So if they are not staying at the dorm, while we don't allow them to take the public transport, the employers can still arrange for dedicated transport, such as Grab or taxis, to ferry them around. So this is also to reduce the chance of intermixing with people from other sites as well, just to protect the workers and also, of course, to protect the public at the same time. It works both ways. For those staying at the dorm, while they are not working on site, and even if that's the case, we don't allow them to take public transport because the incidence of the infection at the dorms itself is still high. So, or rather, the data shows previously there's a high incidence of risk. So for that, again, they are not allowed to take public transport, but we are okay for the employers to arrange for Grab or taxis to ferry the workers around, whether they are on-site or site workers. So that in general is the principle for they are not. So in other words, if they are not working on site, they are not staying in the dorms, I think we are okay for them to take public transport. That is the general principle.
Okay,
and all these arrangements are really more for work accommodation, rather for between the accommodation and work. Is the requirements are really more for that.
Okay, there is a question that asks why are the 25% ruling, why is the 25% ruling applied for transport for construction workers, whereas public transport there is no such requirement? Are you able to shed some light to the principle of it?
I think this on this part we have actually together with MOM has actually reviewed it. I think with there was some feedback from SCAL as well as STAS as well on this. Originally the requirements was more stringent, but they have relaxed it down to saying that it's only 25%. So there's already an improvement, relaxation I would say, to allow more to be housed on to be transported on the lorries or the vans that they have catered for. But that said, I think we are constantly reviewing it. If there's any feedback, do let us know, and we can take it up with MOM on this.
Okay, this question relates to accommodation from Dero. Talking about during application for restart, if submission is for less than 100 workers, and accommodation numbering around 10, but if it is more than 100%, the number of location he's looking at less than 5 or less. But the long-term question is that as the workforce increases, the number of accommodation may be a challenge. So will this regulation be reviewed? And what maybe I would invite you to provide some of the long-term thinking. And at this point, maybe I also invite CEO Hugh to also jump in with some of the broader thinking, even longer term, so that the industry have an idea what to prepare for. Maybe I can start with GK first, just on the more immediate requirements.
Okay. Firstly, I would like to emphasize the objective to require cohorting is to minimize the intermixing of workers from different project sites. Because there were previous cases of workers who contract the COVID and then went back to their dorms and then got others infected. So it's important to minimize the number of different accommodations, which is why there was this limit on the number of accommodation as well. So to achieve cohorting, of course, there are different ways we can achieve that. Of course, the employers got to weigh themselves which type of accommodation, whether it's FCDs, whether it's CTQ, TOLQ, on-site quarters, or to house them at the purpose-built dorms itself. On the purpose-built dorms cohorting, we are actually working closely with the dorm operators as well as the association to facilitate all this cohorting at the dorms itself, so as to minimize the intermixing itself. So I think it is important that we continue to work towards that to minimize the number of accommodations that's allowed for each project sites. But that said, in the interim, we do recognize that there will be issues because due to the tenancy issues, due to the limited elbow room within the dorms itself. Of course, CTQ and TOLQ requires time to be built as well. So we are actually reviewing it. One of the so-called ideas that we have actually is to not require the S-Pass holders to be cohorted together with that. So the main workforce, while they need to be cohorted, the S-Pass can be exempted, because we do recognize that the S-Pass holders are playing more of supervisory role, or they are involved in less physical works on site. And the other part that we are actually reviewing is that in terms of the transient workers who are not working on site full-time, for example, they could go into working at a site for maybe 1 or 2 days a week, it may be impractical to house them. So for this bunch of workers, we do not need to cohort them, but that said, there should be safe management measures strictly enforced on site. That is to say that maybe when they are on site, no intermixing with other workforce who are the main workforce itself. I think this is very important to minimize the amount of chances of cross-infection. So that broadly is the principles that we are reviewing. More to come. We are reviewing. I just want to assure Terong, who posed these questions, that about the 10 accommodations, we recognize that the workforce is a limitation at this point in time, but we wanted to start small to ensure that everybody is used to it, cater to it, and then we can, along the way, move to a bigger workforce.
Can I invite you maybe to chime in here?
Yeah, certainly. I think I noted another question along the same lines also by Julian Ash regarding whether we will continue to cap the number of workers, and I think along with that, the number of accommodation types per project. And I think when we started, the intention was to start small and to allow project parties to be able to phase in their workforce with the safe management measures, both on site as well as in the accommodations. But as the workforce gets cleared from the dorms, we do expect to see that more workers and more accommodations will be made available. So in the interim, as Chikat has explained, we do expect that there will be more, both in terms of number of workers as well as more accommodation locations that will be cleared for projects to be able to tap into. Having said that, we do want to move towards an end state, if you like, where most of the project workers will be able to be cohorted in the same accommodations, whether it's on-site or back in the PBDs. And to support some of this, we have also set up a one-stop shop for project parties to apply for CTQs to be set up or TOLQs to be set up so that you can cohort more of your workers in one location. We do recognize, though, that given the total workforce in the construction sector, it's not likely that you can house all of them into CTQ or TOLQ. So the PBDs will still play a part. The big difference that we see going forward is this. Firstly, the PBDs, the density will be reduced so that the number of workers per room, per floor will begin to go down. That's something that we see taking place over the next 6 months. So even for those whose workforce continue to be housed in the PBDs, you can be assured that the risk there will be reduced. Okay, the risk there will be reduced. Over and above the density, what BCA has been working with SCAL and the Dorm Operators Association is also to facilitate cohorting by project in the PBDs. So not a case where different workers from different sites intermix within the same block. we are trying to move towards one where, for example, a main contractor takes the whole block. And some of them are the main contractor's workers, and some of them may be those subcon workers who are more or less dedicated to that site. So the mixing will be largely confined within the project site. We are also, government is also setting up a number of new quick build dorms. The capacity for these dorms to be set up over the next half a year will be about 30,000. So we're also looking to see how to enable cohorting by project within these dorms. So all in, we do expect to see, particularly for the larger project sites, some priority to be given so that those big project sites, the workers don't have to be spread out over 10, 15 different locations, but can be cohorted within, let's say, 4 to 5 locations, 4 to 5 main locations, so that the chance of mixing and the risk of cross-infection can be reduced. All right, so this is something we fully appreciate takes some time to achieve, and we will need to work closely with industry to see that in the interim, how do we make sure that the risk isn't higher than we can accept? And that we see as a combination of a few things. Number one, within the dorm arrangements, how does employer work with the dorm operator to minimize the chance that the workers inside the dorms end up, shall we say, socializing with other workers and risk picking up something from another company or another work site. Secondly, on the work site itself, how do you enforce segregation so that the teams that are working on the site will minimize the risk of different teams. And then thirdly, in the transportation that you provide, again, how do you minimize the chance that different teams end up sitting on the same bus, sitting on the same lorry? So we had seen a case, thankfully it's not in the construction sector, but it's a adjacent sector where mixing both in the accommodation, and this after restarting, mixing in the accommodation as well as mixing in the transport and mixing at the work site, all led to quite a large number of workers after restart having to be quarantined again. And the original set of cases, only about 8 cases, but more than 300 workers ended up having to be quarantined because on this work site, there wasn't adequate attention paid to segregation. So this is a lesson for all of us. Even after we restart, if we are not vigilant at the accommodation, in the transport, and on the work site, then there is a risk of being stopped even after we restart. Okay, so I hope we can work collectively to address, how to manage the risk so that each individual project site does not have to face the risk of a stoppage after being able to restart. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I promise you that I'll give time for those who raise hands, but we have at least 2 more topics to just quickly cover before we come to that. Next, over to you, Ketran. I promise you the easiest questions, which, again, not to trivialize this, is just simply a reflection that site management is actually the core business of contractors, be it subcon, main con. So it's something that you are very familiar with. Therefore, I think most people have adapted themselves quite quickly to all the safe measures. Regardless, there are some questions. I'm going to throw you 3 questions all in one shot. One is about safe entry. It says from Elvina, Natalie Tan, Charmaine Yang, similar questions about the safe NRIC and QR code has merged. Are we allowed to use a new QR scan for construction work site? Necessary for a safe entry for projects at 100,000 value, can QR code suffice? I thought that the question is not just the technology, because from the A&I perspective, the issue is actually wrong people enter the site. So maybe you could just shed some light on that. Very quickly, second question, which is something you're comfortable with answering. Small projects less than 3 million, can we do different activities at one time? 3 subcon at 3 different level, 3 zone, 3 timing. The third question is that especially subcon apply permit to work 5 days in one site, but I only use up 3 days. Can I use the other 2 days on other sites? Ketran?
Okay, let me first address the questions on safe entry. Now, in our guideline, we specifically mention that we only accept the NRIC version. The QR code is not acceptable because the information from the QR code is not cannot be transferred to the what do you call that? So currently we are actually reviewing whether in future we can make QR code compatible with the access code. So that is question number 1. Question number 2 refers to those small projects where we encourage builder to carry out a single activity at any one time. The question is whether can the builder carry out 3 different activities at each at different floor. I think the question is yes, but the builder must make sure that the SMM measures are put in place. That means the SMO must be there to make sure that there is no mixings among the workers working on different floor at all times, whether it's at rest or whether it's a meal, having their meal, they cannot be together. Okay, and then the third questions on these specialist contractors who are working at multiple sites. Now they are allowed to, their workers are allowed to work, to go to different sites. However, when they go to each site, there must be very strict SMM measures are implemented. In particular, I think we want the SMO or the SDO to be there to make sure that these workers are only at the specific designated zone where they are given to work on. For example, if they are doing waterproofing to the bathroom, they can only work there, and at the floor that they have been asked to do. So that is a very important thing because we don't want these workers to mix with other workers of the main con or other subcons that are also working at that near that areas. So these are the 3 questions, Li Xiang, that you posed to me.
Yes, I'm going to look to Reginald for the next question, requesting him to appear. I can't see him on screen. So while he come on screen, and okay, thank you, Reg. All right, these questions are probably of great concern to a lot of subcontractors from Tony To, Pei Fong, and Tan Chai Heng. First from Tony, levy rebate currently is till June for 50%, and most DOM cleared only by middle of August. So why pay levy when can't start until September? There are many issues faced by subcon, and they are looking to waiver, full waiver for June, July, and further waiver for August, September, before they finally start work in October. And from Pei Fong, subcontractors, are they eligible for COVID-safe project-based support? And for Teo Chai Heng, project-based support only given to main contractor, how about subcon? So maybe I invite you to just again articulate specifically what can be offered, what has been offered to subcontractors to support them in a holistic manner, not just in one item or 2 items singularly. Maybe you can help.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tai. Really, we empathize with industry at this moment because everybody is going through a tough time, and we want everybody to start as soon as possible. But we understand that a quick and safe restart means a certain slowdown. With regard to the MOM levy waiver and rebate, together with our colleagues MOM, I think it is difficult to continue that indefinitely, although MOM has extended it to some extent, not as extensively as everybody hopes, of course, that we understand, for the duration of this period. We do have other forms of support. For example, the COVID safe firm-based support, of which, as a proxy to the COVID safe restart costs, for which we're not making any particular obligations. We intend for this to be for the COVID safe restart purpose, but we're not imposing any particular conditions on subcons. And we really hope that, sincerely hope that this will help with your cash flow situation. We are providing, as a proxy to the cost, $400 per construction worker. So we hope that that will really help ease your cash flow. For the site support, it is really intended, or for the project support, it is really intended for the main con. So the purpose is not really to shortchange the subcons, but really to recognize that to have a COVID-safe work site, there need to be certain measures and all that put in the site. And for that purpose, the main con has to put in SMO, for which there's some coverage, and also site-based protocols and other requirements to ensure that the site is safe. And that's why we are covering that. We do recognize subcons need help. Holistically, the package includes, in the past, there was a lot of concerns about swap costs. So what we did together with our colleagues at MOF, MOH, and so forth, was to look at covering swap costs, which was honestly a major worry at what industry was worrying about, the rate of about $200 per swap. We worked with the rest of government to get that covered until March 2021. And for the construction sector, it includes both the foreign workers as well as locals that visit the site. So that covers this part. It is true that if you look at everything, you can always find something that could be increased. As someone looking at the grants, I get that very often. The intention is not to shortchange anybody, but the intention really is to stretch government dollar as much as possible to help whoever is in need and can benefit from it. So for example, apart from subcons, we have a lot of manufacturing suppliers who are also approaching us to come in and sort of share the construction goodies. And quite sadly, we actually have to turn them away. Not really by choice, but really with regards to what we can have to keep the construction sector vibrant. We are trying to stretch government dollars the best that we can. So I sincerely hope for everybody to understand that and recognize that really the solution is, as far as possible, a quick and safe restart. Now, I recognize that there were a lot of questions also on the COVID safe support, both for the project base as well as the firm base. There were a lot of questions on how to apply and all that. Actually, a circular was sent, so please check that. We are also going to email everybody, okay? And together with SCAL-STAS, we will definitely make this available, the circular available to SCAL-STAS members here. Okay, so we're going to ask for SCAL-STAS to help circulate the circular so that everybody has that in mind. The support, which is for subcontractors for the firm-based support, basically requires you to have vendors at Gov email bank account registered. That's all. So we will find you and put the money. But we request you to, as quickly as possible, get your bank account registered at vendors at Gov. And the details are all in the circular. But this is the quickest way that we can disburse the support to the large number of subcontractors that are there. We recognize, honestly, the difficulty everybody is in, including those outside the sector, suppliers and so forth that we cannot help. And really, the real solution to this is to have it started as soon as possible. But we seek understanding, and also for the spot that's there, especially the one that's just registered and upcoming, basically register quickly so that we can get the cash support to you as soon as possible.
Thanks. Okay, we have quite a number who raised their hands, waiting to ask questions. So may I ask that you keep your question very succinct and concise, so that we can get our panelists to answer quickly, as many as possible. Now, if some of you have very, very specific project question, I suggest that you could approach us more directly through the usual channel, customer service, or we also have a webinar for clinic sessions next week being arranged. So those we will answer very, very direct project questions. So if I may get the MC to help me to start with
sure.
the first one.
All right,
John
hi,
Hong.
Mr. John Hong. Mr. John Hong, could you unmute your mic and ask your question?
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Are you John?
Hi.
John Hong?
Yeah, no, my husband is John. He's beside me.
Okay, okay,
他
that's
讲
fine
华
too.
语，他讲华语的，所以他
讲
叫我，
华语也是
他
可以。
讲华语，他
Okay.
说叫我跟他帮忙他一下子。So I think
okay,
maybe I
okay,
help
okay.
because we are doing ready-mix concrete. We're supplying ready-mix concrete, and our workhead is under manufacturing because we have a JTC factory in Sungai Gadok. So we are doing ready-mix. We supply ready-mix. You know lah, we supply to all the contractor in Singapore. Building contractor, CE contractor, everything. But then because we're under manufacturing, so we are not construction. So all our people are under manufacturing. So we don't get the 75% job support, and also the levy waiver and the levy rebate. I think the first 1-2 months, I think everybody entitled to 75%. But after that, they only give 25% to the manufacturing only. But then we are construction, because the contractor don't work, we also cannot go. So we put in an appeal to say that we actually build environment, to appeal to say that we can get some support, because our headcount also like close to 100, no? Close to 100. And then a lot of the people can still in rate cannot work. We are trying to find out what is the reason. Some quite a percentage of them can work, but a lot cannot work. Still some cannot work. We don't understand also. And then we are trying to appeal for the JSS to have 75%. Also the foreign workers levy, and our workers, we got this China driver lah, Indian drivers lah, the levy refund, because they cannot even drive, right? And then this one we are appealing to this lah. And also we are using the JTC land to do our ready mix, and the JTC did not support us for any land rent, but I think the government supported with the property tax refund. So they say I think the property tax refund might be sufficient for the land rent, but actually it's insufficient because the property tax is quite small. And then because our factory, our ready-mix factory, we also have our workers staying in our factory. So we have about, I think, about 160 packs of our workers staying in our factory. Also our manufacturing. So we got about 160 pack of us. And we are very lucky we don't even have one COVID, because we locked down way before the government lockdown. Because when I went to Sungai Gadok, I saw a lot of people loitering outside. I got a shock of my life. First time in my life, I saw so many Indian people sitting on the grass field in Sungai Gadok, like KK hospital, KK area. So we immediately locked down. And I think because we did that, we have less of this thing. So we are appealing to see that the government can help us with some levy, all these things. Yeah.
Okay, I hear your question. Maybe I invite Resh to give a quick response. What are we doing about this?
I think. I don't think we want to address every single one in the public conference. Some of it we can follow up with you separately. Maybe separately. We'll contact you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Could you tell me your company name? Sorry.
Star Ready Mix. Actually, we got the Ready Mix Concrete Association to write your email.
Okay, understand. Okay. Some of the peers are coming in. Some of the things such as government land rental. There's a certain formula that's applied government-wide. Basically, for commercial rent, it's a certain level of rental. For industrial tenants, is a certain level. For industrial leases, it's property tax. It's different levels. When you have different levels, there's a reason for this. Which MOF is why MOF did it this way, but that leads to some unhappiness because there's some unevenness. We can't promise to help you with everything, but I think for some of the things that you have mentioned, we will probably want to follow up with you at least to see where we can help. Yeah.
Thank you very much. Actually, this COVID thing is unforeseen, is a pandemic, and this is the time we also realize that the government and the BCA and MOM, actually all of you have put in a lot of effort. I saw so many people coming to my factory and my dormitory every day, day and night, still checking. Actually, I really appreciate all these people, really honestly, but because it's the first time, they also don't know what to do. So we work as a team. So I really thought some feedback to you. Maybe you guys can see how you can help us, because next few months maybe it's also it's also survival for us also.
Yes, all right. Thank you, Miss.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Jennifer, Chikit here.
Yes.
You mentioned about the letter from our RMC Association. We are looking into it and we are arranging a separate dialogue session with you.
Yeah. I told RMCS
just to let you know.
Try to help. Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Before we go to the next one, just to highlight that we are aware of the whole value chain, as I think Kenneth earlier mentioned, it's such a vast value chain, and there are limited funding for all the support that we try to dish out. So can I request that you work through the TACs, be it STAS or SCAL, because that has been so far the most effective channel, right? Please raise the issue through the TACs. All right, without further delay, can we go on to the next person?
Hi, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Thomas, could you unmute your mic?
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. Okay,
go ahead, Thomas.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so practically, my questions revolve two main issues. The first issue is that just now I think regarding the levy rebates and the waiver. From what we found online, there's this note. What is the foreign workers levy? So the answer there, or the foreign worker levy, commonly known as levy, is a pricing mechanism to regulate the number of foreign workers in Singapore. Okay, this one I think is from the authorities. So may I ask, if the workers are not allowed to go back to work, why is the government taking levy from us? Because we are not generating any income. Okay, this is one. Then second, if the government is not able to extend the rebate and waiver, because like what is announced earlier, that the government cannot support forever. Yeah. So the next question would be how to restart the work. I understand there should be a lot of there should be certain safety protocol and safety nets to be implemented in order to safely restart. But are all the questions all these safety regulation, safety net practical or reasonable or not? Can it be achieved, and can it be achieved in time for us to be able to survive and continue the businesses? Because you talk about building temporary quarter, new accommodation, and etc. By then, when you finish building all this, there's nobody to stay there because all of us would have wind down already. Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, Thomas. Can I maybe suggest that we give a kind of overview on the second question, because I think the first question we have already received feedback, and I don't think this forum is quite the right place we could give you any answers. But on your second question, which is more about the time taken to achieve some of these safety measures, why are we doing it? Can we really make it in time? I was thinking maybe CEO Hugh could just again give some note on this.
Thomas, thank you for your feedback. I think we fully appreciate the risk that our companies are facing today. And as some of the industry itself has fed back to us, the most direct help needed is to be able to restart quickly. So I think that's something that we collectively are working towards. We have been working quite closely with MOM and the Interagency Task Force to expedite the DOM clearance. Indeed, it has picked up speed over the last 2 weeks. And actually, the majority of workers will be cleared by the end of July. And what we need to work with industry on is to make the other preparations for them, both on site as well as in their transport arrangements. And importantly, for the workers themselves to register their Trace Together apps so that when they return to work, they can also return safely. So some of this preparation can be done in parallel. You don't have to wait till the worker is cleared from the dorm to make this preparation. So do work with the main con also, who is managing the site, so that those preparations can be done while waiting for the workers to be cleared. I think that will help all our project teams to get restarted sooner. All right, we do notice that in some cases, the workers are cleared, but the project has not come in to ask to restart. Okay, so the workers are cleared, but the project site, for some reason, have not applied to restart. Okay, at the same time, we also notice that in some cases, the workers have been cleared through testing, but there are other delay. For example, the employer has not updated their workers' details, and the workers themselves did not actually download the Trace Together app. So all these add days and sometimes 1 or 2 weeks before the worker can come out. So we are urging the employers. We will provide more information. If you haven't signed up for our Telegram, please sign up for our Telegram. Then we can push the information out to you. How to do this and how to do it quickly, so that the workers all get back to work, not in 3-4 months' time, but by the end of July. That's something that we're aiming towards. There are a small number of dorms where the infection rate was very high. So those are taking a little bit longer to clear. But again, the aim is to clear those by the middle of August. Okay, so that gives you a sense that the workforce actually will be cleared. Now the next step is how do we make sure that when they go back onto site, that we keep them safe and that we are able to implement the measures. As to whether or not they are practical, we have to make them so. And it's not something for BCA alone to do, but for the employers on site. Ultimately, the measures are to protect the workforce, to protect employers like yourselves and your families, and to make sure that your project don't stop again. So that's what we would like to be able to achieve. And I think we have been working quite closely with both SCAL and STAS to make sure that the workforce measures, workplace measures can be implemented effectively. So please continue to sign up for our information feed, and we will be working closely with industry to get things started quickly and safely. Thank you.
No, sorry, can I just add on to be more specific in terms of just now Mr. Lim talk about the preparation. I think all this preparation, I think we have follow closely BCA website, MOM website. So we are ready. We are actually ready for that. So we are actually waiting for the dormitories to be clear. I know it's not going to just clear tomorrow or the day after, okay? So what I'm trying to say is, after the dormitory has been clear, how do we resume work if there's requirement like dedicated accommodation whereby one site can only take 3 or 4 addresses, 3 or 4 address? I mean, I don't think it will be very, it is very practical, because if you talk about small site, maybe, but how about those very huge project whereby you need 2,000 before CB, there's 2,000, 3,000 workers on site. How is that possible that you can house every one of them into 1 or 2 accommodation, whereby there might be hundreds of subcontractors working on that site? So the preparation part, we fully understand this is our liability. But however, even when we follow closely this preparation, and we do whatever is necessary, and we do update ourselves, but with this restriction, we are still unable to restart the projects, even if the dormitory has been clear. Because like I say, you need to build all this dormitory. How long is going to take? At least 3-4 months. If we are 3-4 months, maybe we are being optimistic already, with all the regulations to be clear, with all the relevant department checks and all the paperwork. So definitely we need to look into how do we, I mean, the gist of the whole thing, in my humble opinion, is how do we actually be able to restart project when the dorms are clear, with the workers staying in the dorms and going to the project. I think the protocol there, as in the protection or the safety net, should be established to cater for this part so that we can quickly resume. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Thomas. We welcome you to actually come and meet us and go to deeper detail, address some of these issues. And I mentioned earlier on, we work very closely with STAS and SCAL. I strongly encourage you to use those channels as well, right? So we hear you loudly. I think we will definitely address your concern. We have time before the full restart in end July or mid-August. We have time, so we're going to address that.
Lee Siang, maybe I just make this point. I think we fully appreciate not every work site can build your own CTQ, can build your own TOLQ. Maybe some sites are able to afford to, many sites will not be able to. So I think, Thomas, you're correct that eventually we must be able to work out from the PBDs also. And indeed, that's what we want to work towards. So it's not a case that every contractor has to somehow move their workers somewhere else to stay. So we are working with the dorm operators also to allow for segregation inside the dorms. Okay, so that is also a parallel step that we're making. For some of them where they have a bit more room, they can do it in parallel. In some cases, we may have to do it after the dorm is fully cleared. Then we can rearrange where the workers are staying. In some cases, it may mean we move across from different dorms. So there's a dialogue already ongoing between SCAL and the Dorm Operators Association to how to enable this to happen quickly, not to get stuck in a lot of contractual renegotiation. So we are aware of it, and we are actually working to facilitate that to happen. So even for large projects, we're employing hundreds or even thousands of workers. But even more so, I think it's important to protect those workforce from the risk of cross-infection. And as I mentioned earlier, we know an ideal state that we want to get to. We don't think we'll get there immediately. So it's now in the interim period, how do we make sure that the workforce are sufficiently segregated? That's not to say they cannot work, but how to work with the necessary measure in place. Okay, so this is something that we will need each of the main con on site to also work out what's a plan to do so. And the plan is not to say don't work. The plan is to say to work, but with measures on site to segregate those workers who may be staying in a different accommodation. Okay?
Thanks, Hugh.
Yes, sorry, I just one.
Thomas, can I request that we give the chance to other people to ask questions?
This one
we hear you. Yeah.
General one. I think in terms of the safe transit, safe transport requirement. Safe transport requirement.
Sorry, I can't hear you.
Let me mute myself. Okay. In terms of the safe.
Okay, can you quickly make your point? If not, we'll move on to.
Okay. Is it possible that we do away with the 25% reduction and also to the sending to one work site only per trip? I think we can put some safety measures in place of all these requirements, like maybe wearing a safety suit, like those people doing the swab test, those medical personnel wearing the safe suit, so that we can do away with the reduction of the 25% and also sending to one work site only in one trips. Will that be possible?
I suggest we take it as a suggestion. We have to review it. Okay. Okay, thanks. Can we go to the next Fu Yao Hai?
Hi, Yao Hai. Yao Hai, could you unmute your mic?
Okay, maybe we move on to Eng Lee.
Hi, Eng Lee.
Yes,
could you
hi.
Hi.
Yeah.
Hello.
Okay, hi. Okay, how many questions would you allow me to ask?
One question.
Okay, one. Okay, then I'll choose the most important one.
Yeah, thank
okay,
you.
Previously our workers were staying in 2 dormitories, but during the CB, they were transported to the hotels. And then currently they are out of the hotels already, but they are being dispersed to many different temporary dormitories. So we had approval to work, but now we are facing this problem of having to go to 5 dormitories every morning to pick up our workers. Can something be done to consolidate our workers?
Yeah, I don't know, Chiket, maybe from accommodation point of view, what is the desirable state we can advise?
I think we can take it offline subsequently, but I think in general, what I'm hearing is that they are actually housed at different facilities, government source facilities right now, is it?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
so
they are all
I
cleared
think,
for they are cleared for work, but now the problem we are facing is that we need to arrange transport for them.
yeah.
And
So
we also
actually
receive
under
an email.
yeah, so actually under MOM, there's this if you want to move these workers right to a consolidated cleared accommodation, MOM does facilitate that lah. So there's this
Yes,
email
I
address
have
that you can write to.
written the emails weeks ago, but I'm not getting any response.
Okay,
I
why not?
I understand the volume may be high, but operationally wise, I don't know how long we can continue with this, picking up from 5-6 locations every morning.
I see. Why not you email me and then we'll take it up separately on this.
Email who, sorry?
My email address. Okay, Tan Chi Kiat, yeah. I mean, we will contact you.
Okay.
Yeah,
we should be able to
we'll
contact you.
contact you separately on this.
Yeah.
Okay, can, thanks.
Okay.
And then another thing about the swab test, we have approval since 4th of June from BCA, but none of our workers are being tested yet. So is this the normal waiting time, or we are being somehow overlooked?
Grace?
Yeah, okay. May I know, maybe your workers, are they in the dormitory or are they in the HDB locations?
No, at the government temporary facilities.
Okay.
Yeah, but even our Singaporean colleagues and PRs are not tested as well. So I don't know. I'm not pushing, but I'm just checking. Is this the normal wait time?
Okay. If information is provided to us, actually we'll follow up with you further on this. Yeah, we'll contact you on this also for a specific case.
Okay, can.
Yeah, thanks for raising this.
Yeah, okay, thanks.
Okay, time is running out. So just as I said in the beginning, there will be more webinars coming up next week onwards to address very specific bolts and nuts issue. Question like this, they are very project specific. So I encourage you to sign up for those, because there you will have the airtime of the panelists to address your specific concern. For today's webinar, we wanted to actually give you an update of the progress, and also to set for you the landscape for the kind of projection that we're looking at over the next 2 to 4 weeks. So I hope you go away with confidence that things are being planned. Though there are many concerns that remain, we will address them. So what you have brought up today, actually, we have also received feedback. Just want to assure you. Now, before we end, let me just quickly invite our guests for this webinar to give their quick summary remark. Maybe I start with Nelson, Kenneth, then Hugh.
Thanks, Bisiang. I think just before that, I have one question. Okay. Can we have a virtual meeting on this contractual issue, especially on extension of time? I know that BCA encourages us to seek for legal advice, but we think that we should have an engagement first before that, because if we go to the lawyer normally advocate a confrontation.
Yeah.
Okay, just joking only.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can build that into the webinar. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I call upon all the stakeholders of this industry. I think we should work together as with a kampong spirit, bergotong royong, as we say. Okay, work together and let's fight this crisis together. Thank you.
Thank you, Nelson. Kenneth?
Hi, I think from the questions and the reaction so far, it seems like the disparity, the knowledge gap is still there. Of course, I think the situation is still evolving. I guess from SCAL's perspective, we are continuing to engage authorities as well. So for those our members, perhaps if you have any questions, SCAL may be another way that you can actually reach out to, and then rest assured we will definitely look at your problems as well. Thanks.
Thanks. Hugh?
Well, again, thank you very much for your questions, and it does give us some sense of what are the areas of uncertainty or concern. I think as Kenneth has suggested, it would be useful to consolidate some of these requests and requirements together, and then we can work with SCAL how best to address those concerns in a practical way. Please be assured that BCA would like to see all our projects and the construction workforce back to work, and we want to see them be able to get back to work safely and without being interrupted by further outbreaks. So I think with the support and cooperation of our partners in the industry, I think we can look forward to seeing that happen over the next few weeks. Thank you all very much.
Before we end, let me just also remind you that many of the information update is actually carried in our Telegram posting. You have got the QR code just now, and you can easily find us on Telegram. So please sign up, because the key is actually getting the latest info in your palm rather than wait for someone else to tell you. So please do that. The second thing, just again to remind everyone that the associations play a crucial role in this whole restart. Many of the issues that you raised actually has been raised by them and resolved with them in collaboration. So please go to them, and if you're not a member of SCAL-STAS, please join them, because this has become the most effective channel of communication throughout this time and getting things done. So I encourage you to do that. Now, before we leave this webinar, just want to leave you with one interesting quote. This is from a person that you probably never heard of. Her name is called Catherine Switzer. She's the first official woman runner in Boston Marathon in 1967. The quote says, "All you need is the courage to believe in yourself and put one foot in front of the other." That's all. This is a very uncertain journey, but if you don't even put one foot forward, you don't know how to even carry on. So we need to collectively put our one foot forward, and then the next, and the next, and the next. I think we will get through this crisis. So with this, I thank you all for your attendance, and thank panelists for your participation and answering difficult questions, and hope to see all of you soon in the next webinar. Thank you, and see you all.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very
CEO.
much. Thank
Thank you, CEO,
Yeah.
ED,
Thank you.
panelists, and participants for sharing your thoughts and valuable insights. It has been an engaging and fruitful session. With that, we have come to the end of this webinar. After exiting this webinar, you will be directed to a short survey. We will appreciate if you can provide us with your valuable feedback. You will be able to download the speaker's presentation materials on BCA website after completing the survey. I would also like to assure you that all unanswered queries will be addressed, compiled, and published via FAQ on the webinar link at a later date. We are also pleased to share that BCA is now on Telegram, and you may wish to subscribe to it to find out about the latest updates and information on BE sector. On behalf of SCAL-STAS and BCA, we'd like to thank you for your participation and making this webinar a success. We wish you a safe and smooth restart. Stay well, be safe, and have a good week ahead. Signing off, this is Colin Chu from BCA.